Hi, I'm James and I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement at CARE, and today I want to talk about human beings made in God's image. Now, the opening chapters of the Bible in Genesis 1, 2 and 3 are among the most important passages for us to grasp, because from them we draw out some of the most foundational and fundamental truths in the Christian faith. For example, Genesis 1 is all about God's staggering power and creativity. It's about a God who simply is, who always has been, and who always will be. Even the opening sentence of the whole Bible, "In the beginning, God," is both dramatic and powerful. And it's striking that these opening words set a pattern that's repeated across the Bible. You see, you'll never find God's existence argued for in the Bible. Rather, the writers simply state it. Now, as creation unfolds, we see God speaking and bringing the whole universe into existence out of nothing. It's undeniably awesome, it's staggering in its scope, it's beyond our imaginations what God did. As God said to Job in a sermon delivered to a congregation of just one, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy." Now, while the end goal of the whole creation narrative in Genesis 1 is day 7 and God's rest from creating, the climax of his creative acts is what happens on day 6. So the first thing God creates on day 6 is living creatures on the land. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then, in verse 26, there's a subtle but significant change. Up until this point, we've read repeatedly, "And God said, and God said, and God said." But in verses 26 to 27, we read this. "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, the birds in the sky, over the livestock, over all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Two things are worth noting. Firstly, there's a hint that there is both a unity and a plurality in God. The text says, "Let us make mankind." It's one of the first major hints of the doctrine of the Trinity in the Bible. It's a little suggestion that the three persons of the Trinity consulted together and all agreed on this final creative act. It's also significant that what God is about to create is distinct and different from his previous creative acts. The opening words of verse 26 function as a dramatic pause in the relentless narrative of creation. We're invited to stop, to breathe, to watch as God, who's already made sun, moon, and stars, suddenly does something even more extraordinary. In verses 26 to 27, we read that God made human beings in his own image. And this is the very essence of what it means to be human, that there is something godlike about us. In verse 27, you'll notice there is a threefold repetition as well. Made in his image, in his image, in his image. And this is the Bible's way of saying this is important. Here's how Psalm 8 puts it. "You made them a little lower than the angels." And actually in the New Living Translation, it's a little lower than God himself. Now, before we ask, what does being an image bearer mean? We need to acknowledge that this teaches us first and foremost is human beings have a God-given dignity. And that dignity is not something that comes because of our abilities or achievements. It's all to do with our connection to God himself. This has so many important implications. From this very reality, we draw practical applications today. For example, we conclude that everyone, no matter who you are, is an image bearer and has God-given dignity. This reality underpins laws to do with the protection of life and the care of the most vulnerable. Unlike our world, which gives us arbitrary lines for when someone becomes valuable, there's a beautiful simplicity about the Christian worldview. We believe life is precious from conception through to its natural end. So a preborn baby has as much value and dignity as a 25-year-old in their prime. The truth that humans are made in God's image is why at CARE we think abortion is wrong and assisted suicide is wrong. But what does being an image bearer actually mean? Well, theologians have written plenty on the meaning. For example, some say it's our morality and our sense of right and wrong. Some say it's our ability to reason. Others, our ability to forge relationships. For others, it's about the fact we've been given dominion over the earth. We get some help from Genesis 5 verse 3, which says, when Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and named him Seth. You see, as children, we mirror our parents, both physically and also in terms of their personality and character. And as image bearers of God, our bodies give testimony to God's creative brilliance and wisdom. Our personalities give evidence of God's holiness, wisdom, and other attributes. We could summarize it like this. To be an image bearer is to display the glory of God. Human beings uniquely can worship God, bring Him glory, enjoy God, and we reflect God's character to the world. To be made in the image of God is to mirror God in this world. Humans made in God's image means that as whole persons, both physically and spiritually, we are in some senses like God Himself. Another key part of what it means to be made in God's image is that we have His law in our hearts. Romans 2:14-15 says, indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them, and at other times even defending them. Of course, before we're saved, we suppress this knowledge. We know too that the image of God is defaced by the fall, but not destroyed. We know this because in Genesis 5 and 9, we're told the image of God remains even post-fall and the entrance of sin. For example, in Genesis 9, the image of God is the basis for respecting the value of human life. And gloriously in Christ, we are remade into the image of God. As 2 Corinthians 3:18 says, as we behold His glory, we are transformed more and more into His likeness. Or Colossians 3:10 says that through our union with Jesus and the new birth, we're being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its creator. And 1 John 3 says that when Jesus returns, the transformation will be complete. We'll be made like Jesus and we'll see Him as He really is. We'll receive resurrection bodies fit for eternity. So here's the story. We're made in God's image, but thanks to our sinfulness, it's defaced and ruined. Through Jesus and our faith and union with Him, it's gloriously restored, and one day we'll image Christ in a far fuller and more glorious way. Then the whole world really will be filled with the knowledge of God's glory as the waters cover the sea.